After the Louisiana Purchase, the United States sought to control North America and the Western Hemisphere through exploration, Indian removal, military action, and diplomatic efforts, such as the Monroe Doctrine. From 1804 to 1806, Lewis and Clark and 50 others traveled 4,000 miles to the Pacific to learn the geography of the territory, explore trade, and return with flora and fauna. William Henry Harrison and Andrew Jackson each defeated Native American confederacies, gaining huge tracts of land in the process, 22 million acres in Georgia and Alabama. Each of their victories were part of the War of 1812, fought in part to control the western frontier, in which the British were arming Native Americans. John Quincy Adams, son of John Adams, an accomplished diplomat, and James Monroe's Secretary of State from 1817 to 1825, later himself the president and 9-term congressman, authored the Monroe Doctrine, which drove American foreign policy well into the 20th century. The doctrine did three things. It reiterated America's position of neutrality in European conflicts, closed the Americas to recolonization or future European colonization, and argued that the New World was a sphere of republicanism, whereas the Old was a sphere of monarchy. The Monroe Doctrine, reinterpreted by subsequent generations, proved to be a durable statement of the ideology and principles underlying America's foreign policy. Frontier settlers tended to champion expansion efforts, while American Indian resistance led to a sequence of wars and federal efforts to control and relocate American Indian populations. In 1817, Andrew Jackson led troops into Florida, occupying Spanish territory, to quell Seminole uprisings, and in 1824, President James Monroe conceded to public pressure to relocate the Cherokee in Georgia west of the Mississippi. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 created the apparatus for Native American removal. In two decisions, ruled on over the course of 1831 in Cherokee Nation v. Georgia and 1832, Worcester v. Georgia, the Supreme Court gave Georgia the prerogative to seize Cherokee lands and incorporate them as counties under the state structure, but in the second decision overturned the Georgia prison sentence of 4 years to a Vermont missionary living among the Cherokee, stating the laws of Georgia had no force in Cherokee land and must conform with treaties or acts of Congress. The second decision compelled Andrew Jackson to initiate Indian removal, which was completed in 1838-39, during which 4,000 of the 15,000 Cherokee that were sent to what is modern-day Oklahoma perished along the way. Lands ceded as a result of the Creek War and Indian Removal Act were now open for the westward growth of cotton and sugarcane production produced by enslaved labor. In Mississippi, for example, the enslaved population grew 197% from 1830 to 1840. Abolitionists used poetry and song appealing for interracial harmony and praising the exploits of those who freed slaves and published them in newspapers, on broadsides, and on handcrafted goods. The picture on the bottom right, the branded hand, praised the exploits of a sea captain who freed slaves and when apprehended received the SS brand on his hand for slave stealer. Southerners, including John C. Calhoun, who had been the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State, the Vice President of the United States, and a senator from South Carolina, making him an important political figure of this time, argued that slavery was a positive good in which the enslaved were fed, clothed, and taken care of for life. In an effort to preserve the balance of power between free and slave states, the Missouri Compromise of 1820 admitted Missouri as a slave state, Maine as a free state, and prohibited slavery in the Louisiana Territory north of the 36 degrees latitude line. In response to an American Anti-Slavery Society petition drive, in which over 130,000 petitions were sent to Congress between 1837 and 1838, Congress instituted a gag rule that automatically postponed action on all petitions relating to slavery, which stayed in place from 1836 to 1844. When John Quincy Adams attempted to read one of these petitions, the rules prevented him from doing so, causing him to respond with the question, "Am I gagged?" The 1837 murder of abolitionist newspaper publisher Elijah Lovejoy sharply increased membership in anti-slavery societies. Mobs had destroyed Lovejoy's presses on a number of education, but when a new press arrived in 1837, the violence escalated. No sooner was the new press offloaded from the steamboat than a drunken mob formed and tried to set fire to the warehouse where it was stored. When Lovejoy ran out to push away a would-be arsonist, he was shot. Officials in Illinois made little public comment with one notable exception. A 28-year-old Illinois state representative named Abraham Lincoln said the following: "Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father, and to tear the charter of his own and his children's liberty. Let reverence for the laws be breathed by every American mother. In short, let it become the political religion of the nation."